It changed my life, nearly killed me. I lost $100 million.
What you're going to hear today is the incredible tale of perseverance. Dariush Soudi is Dubai's most sought-after inspirational speaker. He was almost murdered. He lost $100 million, had to leave his country, start from scratch. And from a maid's room in Dubai, he went on to rebuild his empire. And now he helps businesses turn their fortunes around and achieve unprecedented success.
People think business is exciting. It's setting a logo and a brand is exciting, but it's all about discipline. Gladiators are people who actually go into the arena called life and they fight their battles like their life depended on it.
Genius.
So what I teach people is that practice your maneuvers before you go into battle.
What are some of the most important things that people need to start paying attention to increase their odds of success?
Comfort is your biggest enemy. Growth comes through pain. Your values speak louder than your words. Second,
wow. So you really hacked the system, but you developed this whole game. But now sharing it on this podcast, didn't you just jeopardize your game?
We still catch them because nobody does anything. So,
Daryush, it's so good to be meeting you here in Dubai. I'm so impressed by what you've built. And
are we doing this now, or are you just...
We're recording.
We're not recording yet. Are we recording? Okay, I wasn't ready. I thought you were just practicing.
No, just keep this in. Just keep this in. Okay, but you've got a very charming laugh as well.
Thank you.
But this is a great way to begin.
Do you know what it is? I've been on courses all over the world, personal development courses, and what was common that people were coming to me saying, "Thank you for being on this course." I was like, "Who are you?" He says, "You're not even in my group." I said, "No, but your energy." And everybody anywhere in the world would say, like, say, "Your energy is amazing." And I thought, maybe this is my gift, that I have this energy that people notice.
Your energy is amazing. Now, for those of you who are watching this episode of the Mind Valley podcast, what you're about to hear right now is a crazy story. And I'm hoping that in some way, Daryush's story is going to inspire you if you're going through a really sticky moment in your life and you're wondering, why the hell did the universe give me this horrible situation right now? So Daryush, we were talking before this podcast and you shared a number of stories with me that really touched me. I want you to share one with my audience right now, and that is what happened to you in London and what led to you moving here to Dubai.
Certainly. 2008, it was Manchester, England. I've been there, I think lived 30 years in England. And we discussed this earlier, and it never really felt like home. But I built a number of successful businesses, health clubs and so forth. And I appeared in the rich list of northwest of England. There was a fly on the wall documentary following me everywhere.
You were a big reality TV star.
I was there, yes. And the program was called That's Rich. And so in the house, taking to Spain, walking to showrooms, buying cars. And things couldn't get better. But unfortunately, I just got separated from my wife and divorced from my first wife. And she'd moved to Dubai. We had properties here in Dubai. But I chose that to be a single dad. I want to look after my children, my son and daughter, one's 30 and one's 28. So in this particular evening, they're at my house, and there's a knock on the door. And I shouted at them and said, "Somebody answer the door." And I was just with my jeans on and don't like walking around the house with a top. So I thought, oh God, I got to put a top on. And they were on iPhones and Xboxes. They couldn't hear me. So I was cursing and walked down the stairs and opened the door, and 4 men broke into the house. And literally they pinned me against the wall with a knife to my neck. And the guy was saying, let's cut him. And looking back, he meant to cut his throat because the knife was here.
Right.
And they demanded money. They knew where my children's schools were, my work. They'd done their homework.
Because you were a reality TV star. So
because
they knew.
Later on I found out indirectly they were one of my franchisees.
I see.
Indirectly. But then it was more like, he's showing off his wealth. The guy had borrowed money to buy one of my franchises. And they came after him and said, I've given your money to him.
Right.
So he's rich, he's on this TV program, let's get the money from him. So I find this later on. So anyhow, being a salesman, I told them that I don't carry that kind of cash, £250,000 at a time. Come tomorrow, I'll give it to you. So they left, they knew where my children's school was, my work was. So immediately I phoned the police. within 20 minutes, they arrested them. But that evening, I feared for my children's safety.
Wow.
So I took them to the nearby hotel and flew them to Dubai the very next morning. So I lost my kids, the most important things in my life.
And your kids were 14 and 12 at that time?
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. So, and my children, I always wanted to be the father I never had. So my goal, my legacy is everything to have the most amazing kids.
Right.
So losing them was a big chunk of my happiness, my love in my life. And then I got a police escort to the house, packed the car. I had a number of properties in Spain, and I drove in the car in the Q7 from Manchester to London, Dover, the Channel Tunnel, France, Spain, to Porto Banús in 48 hours. I literally was shaking. I didn't know what had happened to. I never went back to that house. I kind of like reflected on life. Why has this happened to me? And I've lost my kids. I got back and I had a heart attack. The stress of it all gave me a heart attack. During my heart surgery, I was lying there looking at the Wythenshawe Hospital ceiling, thinking, is this the last view of my life? And if I survive this, I'm going to do everything that's aligned with my values. Now, I couldn't stop crying. And it's interesting, Vishen, because I was crying. I wasn't scared of death. Although they said I'd probably die. I had a 75% chance of dying, 25% chance of survival. And the reason I was crying because I was alone. And I didn't want to die alone. So I made a decision, if I survive this, I'm going to be with my kids in Dubai. Just made a decision. And I said, September the 1st, I'm going to be in Dubai. Just made a decision. Obviously, I survived, sold my businesses. Taxman came after me. I was leveraged. The bank came after me. The buyers found out that I was very honest with them. They paid 10%, not the 90% of some of my businesses. They said, sue us. I literally handed them the key and the lease in good faith.
You gave up everything so that you could move to Dubai to be with your kids.
I even went to Spain and literally did a house sale, left the keys on my kitchen top. And those houses, I don't know what's happened to them. Because I knew I had to burn my boats.
Right.
Otherwise, I'll always be attached to Europe and coming back and have to sell those houses. I've got equity in here. Let's get a right price for my business. But that time was something that I couldn't take for granted. You know, I could die any minute now. And the fact is that age 3.5, my father died at age 29. I saw my grandfather die at age 7. So something that I never take for granted is time.
But it was all triggered from these men who broke into your house and put a knife to your throat.
Yes.
And threatened to come back.
Yes.
And you decided to send your kids to Dubai to keep them safe. You sold that property and you decided to start selling everything you could to just get out of the UK and move to Dubai.
Yes.
Now you told me when you moved here, you moved here with only 750 bucks.
750, just under 750.
But what happened to your business empire?
I gave one away to some staff. Some people paid me 10% deposit, the new buyers.
Right.
They didn't pay me the 90% balance. They said, sue us.
You decided to just let everything go.
Suing them will take years. I don't have the capital. The bank came after me because I was leveraged. The taxman came after me. And then there was a dispute for £30,000. And I had hundreds of thousands of pounds in my business account. And then the taxman, when they going to issue something against you, they have to put in the London Gazette.
Right.
It's a 200-year-old law. I've never been in financial difficulties before. And immediately, the banks freeze your account.
Wow.
So I couldn't even pay the £30,000 to the taxman because
how much did you end up losing?
100 million.
You lost
I was valued at 100 million.
Million pounds.
Yeah, 600 staff.
In how many days?
9 months.
In 9 months.
Yes.
And that's why when you moved to Dubai,
yes,
750 bucks. Do you ever feel anger at these men who broke into your home and put you in that cascade of losing everything?
It doesn't stop there, because what I feel anger towards is that desperate people do desperate things.
Right.
Okay, so I don't have any anger towards them. Well, I did have anger with a system whereby I had to turn up to court to meet these people, to put my case forward that these are the guys.
Right.
And 2 or 3 times got adjourned, and then the police did a deal with them, and they only got 6 months house arrest. So it changed my life, nearly killed me. I lost £100 million, and they only got 6 months house arrest. So they got some bracelets or something around the ankle.
Right.
But here's what really hurt, is that when I came here and I started life from scratch, nobody knew me. They started at home frustrated. They opened a ton of websites against me. And I didn't know anything about the internet. Dariush is this, he's got this, he's got this. It's horrible, horrible stuff. So I could meet you. What you'll do, the moment I've left the meeting, you'll Google me, and it was shit about me on the internet. So I had this.
So you lost your reputation as well.
Well, I didn't lose it because I like to think that my values are so strong, but I had this shadow battle going on because I'll meet you, we'll agree to start tomorrow, you'll cancel.
Right.
Because you did some research and they said there's a saying, if there's so much shit, some of it must be true. Right? So here's the interesting thing. I became an expert on online stalking. I contacted my MP. He was being stalked. Before you knew it, I had a movement. 6 months later, it became most profitable side of my business, helping people who are also being stalked.
I see.
You see?
But
because I know it was so painful.
But what's crazy is despite all of this, and here's the lesson, despite all of this, what recently happened is that you've become so well known in Dubai because of your podcasts and your social media empire that you've built, and all by accident, and there's a powerful story here, that you were just given the Opera House free of charge to speak.
Yes,
and organize your event.
Yes, glad
so you go from losing everything, losing 100 million, coming to Dubai with $750 in your pocket, and now you are speaking at the Opera House. Now, I want to hear that part of the journey. And it involves Muhammad Ali.
Yes.
It involves some other crazy, strange coincidences and things that happen in your life. But it's a very inspiring story. Tell us.
Thank you so much. So once you're used to a certain level of standard of living, you want it back and more. So when I was living in a maid's room for 6 months, and my diet was 2 coffees and a sugar donut a day, and I've just had a heart attack. It's not exactly a healthy way of living. However, I do teach people, if you're going to live in a maid's room, live in a nice neighborhood,
right? Because
your peer group is everything. So I worked hard, but I did know that if I keep selling my time as a consultant, sales and marketing consultant, I will never become rich because you're limited to how much you can earn your time in a day. So I kept asking the question, how can I have a business where I'm not selling my time? How can I have a business I can scale without selling my time? And I kept asking these questions for over 3 years. At the same time, when I was in the hospital in Wythenshawe, I wrote down my values and my goals. And one of my goals was to meet my hero, Muhammad Ali. He doesn't know me. I didn't know him. Don't know anything about him. But then I did some research and I found out that Muhammad Ali had a center in Louisville, Kentucky called the Ali Center, where he taught his principles of greatness. And I knew that Dubai and Abu Dhabi and UAE have this obesity issue. They got this diabetes issue where people are earning a lot of money, but they're not exercising, they're not working out, not watching what they eat. So I thought, if I can actually meet the ruler of Dubai, and he's got these gorgeous, amazing buildings, and somehow I can bring the Ali Center, bring the principles of greatness to young people. At the same time, I could meet my hero and do business with the ruler of Dubai. This is marriage made in heaven. But it wasn't so easy because when I was wealthy, I used to come to Dubai all the time, and it was a small town. And I used to bump into the ruler all the time, in tea rooms, coffee shops, restaurants, all the time. But by the time I arrived, Dubai was a city, and it wasn't so easy to. He had an entourage, and you couldn't have access to him. So over a period of 2.5 years, I kept meeting different decision makers and junior sheikhs about this idea to bring the Muhammad Ali Center into Dubai. And everybody rejected it. The final meeting was with the son of one of the rulers, and I did the best. By this time, I was an amazing presenter on this presentation of Ali Center UAE. I did the best presentation you could imagine, and he rejected it. I went home totally despondent, totally disappointed, phoned up my friends. I said, this is one goal I'm never going to achieve. And he says, have you heard of Facebook? I said, why don't you just put Ali Center UAE on Facebook and write a letter. Tell people what your movement is. Maybe you can start something. So, okay, I'll try. I'll have a Facebook page with a few hundred friends and family. So I wrote a heartfelt letter. And I always say some lessons here. Whatever you write, don't write it from the head, write it from the heart. Because when you write it from the heart, it reaches people's hearts. So I wrote this heartfelt letter, and I wrote at the bottom, if 50 of you support me, I will continue this dream. Went to bed, woke up, had over 1,000 followers. And this letter went viral, had over 40,000 followers within 2 weeks. Driving on Sheikh Zayed Road in my crappy Yaris, phone rings, can you be available at 11 o'clock tonight?
So this is a random phone call that you got?
Random phone call on my phone. Because on this Facebook page, my phone number was there.
Right.
My contact details. So we're sitting, the whole family is sitting around the table, the phone rings, and it's Lonnie Ali, Muhammad Ali's wife.
Wow.
Muhammad has seen your campaign and he wants to meet you. And he
And
fully
what year was
supports you.
this?
2012.
2012. This was around 4 years before Ali passed away.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right.
So I didn't have the money, so I borrowed of people and I took a number of flights. I went to Louisville, Kentucky. I turned up 3 hours before our meeting, maybe even 4 hours, nervous. I was about to meet my hero. And I was sitting in this cafeteria. Then it dawned upon me that by that time I had over 60,000 followers. I was addicted. I was looking at numbers just going up. People were just going viral.
And all of these followers were coming because
The letter.
of the letter you put up.
I only put one letter on social. I didn't know what boost ads, nothing. People liked this and they just sent it out to people. And the numbers literally by the seconds were going up. It was very addictive actually. And so I took a picture of the sandwich board and the menu and saying, it's because of you that I'm here continuing my journey. And like 7,500, 8,000 people instantly replied, wishing me luck. And then it came to me that I could never physically have this reach unless it was for social media. And on the back of a handkerchief, literally on the back of a handkerchief, I thought, I got personally 30 odd clients that I serve daily as a consultant. I can convert them into my social media clients. I'll become a social media company.
Right.
Okay. And at the time, it was only, I think, Twitter and Facebook. So for like
It was the early days.
In very early days. So we had over 300 clients in the first year.
Wow.
And from then people came and said, you're doing a great job. Can you do websites? What I always do, I take the money and I find out how later.
Right.
And then so I took the money, I got commitment from them and I went out and hired the right people. It was a tough ride. Then they came and said, we love your website, but we can't find it. So I said, oh, okay, you need SEO. So I Googled it. So I took their money, I've built the SEO team. And then they came and said, well, we love what you're doing, but our ranking's still on the second, third page. Oh, you need Google ads. Now suddenly we became the top 3% Google advertising agency partners in the whole of MENA region.
And so you found there was a market demand, and then you built up the skills, hired the team that could serve that demand.
Indeed.
And that's how you build up your empire.
Indeed.
And now you have this incredible podcast, over 1.1 million followers on Instagram.
Yes.
And you are a local celebrity.
Kind of, yes. However, I was in China, they recognized me. I was in Manchester, they recognized me. You cannot, well, it's unbelievable the reach you can have through online and social media.
I think the really interesting lesson over here is that sometimes when you have a dream, in your case, the dream for the Ali Center, when you have a dream and the dream is going to be inspiring and uplifting to other people, it's really possible in the world today. Like, we live in such an incredible world, possible in the world today to rally allies together so that that individual dream can become a shared dream. And with a large group of people, you can make that dream reality.
The movement is
And in your
incredible.
case, that movement that supported you, I remember you telling me something before we got into this room. You said you were so grateful to everyone who supported you and got you to Louisville. But the funny thing is, Ali never showed up, did he?
He never showed up. I
showed
tend to
up.
stop because it's a motivational story.
Right.
He never showed up. He got an offer for dinner. And the fact is that the people said to me who were close to him, said, you would have been quite disappointed because he was on a wheelchair. He couldn't even eat his food. He couldn't speak. You might have probably broken your heart.
Yeah, but it wasn't about Ali.
It wasn't.
What you learned from then is that you, even after losing everything, you had the power to still dream and to inspire people to support this dream. And then, while you couldn't bring the Ali Center to Dubai, that didn't happen, there was something bigger, and that is the Daryush Show, this podcast that you
Gladiator
created.
Mastery Program.
Gladiator Mastery. Absolutely. So tell us about Gladiator Mastery.
If you imagine that all my life, I'm dyslexic and people thought I was stupid. Well, I knew I wasn't stupid because I was very good with numbers. So if you imagine you go into a classroom, I'm not the best looking, I'm not the strongest, I'm not the tallest, I'm not the most anything. I'm just Mr. Average. Okay? Whatever I've done well in life is because I worked the hardest.
Right.
Okay? And I learn from my mistakes. So I look at people who haven't had the privilege of having somebody to guide them. And also we go back to pre-internet.
Right.
I had to seek it. I go to the library and get the books and stuff. I didn't have a peer group to teach me personal development. And I thought, what if I actually 20 years ago, I visited Iran. to go, because that's where my grandparents lived,
Yeah.
and that's where I originate from. I went to see their grave, and about 30 people turned up to see me. Now, my grandfather died in 1974, and they came queuing up to see me and shake my hand and kiss my hand. I said, "What's this?" Because your granddad helped these people 30 years ago. And I thought, when I was flying back, I was thinking, that's legacy. What am I doing to leave a great legacy for my kids? And I found social media a platform where you can leave great legacies and help people who don't have a peer group who can guide them. So I thought gladiators are people who actually go into the arena called life, and they fight their battles like their life depended on it. And too often, entrepreneurs and salespeople start businesses, and immediately everybody says to them, "Don't worry, 80% of businesses fail
Right.
in the first year." And out of that 80%, why? It's just that they don't know. They're actually going to the lowest denominator. If I can help people to have successful businesses, bring certainty, skills, as long as they're self-motivated, because we can't go holding their hand all the way. They have to be self-motivated desire. If I can teach them the skills and they go into battle, a strategy, knowing the maneuvers, they should win in life called arena. And I've changed lives. Literally.
So let's talk about that.
Lives.
I love your story. And there's so many beautiful lessons in your story, right? Lessons of dealing with adversity, of bouncing back when things really go awry. But let's talk about your gladiators. What are some of the most important skills that you're teaching them? What do you think can help people beat those odds, those ridiculously high odds of business failure?
I think certainty. And certainty comes through practice, habitual things. So before you and I discussed making telephone calls, call calls, right? On the phone. If you imagine somebody sits with you and guides you and takes you through the mindset of somebody who receives the call. You received the call 10 minutes ago, right? And you did everything you could get rid of them. If you could tap into their mindset, and I can teach you how to make a call that half the people don't put the phone down on you, what impact is that going to have on your life?
Right.
Okay? So practice everything before you go in. Now, people think business is exciting. Business isn't. It's setting a logo and a brand is exciting, but it's all about discipline. Business tends to be a marathon, and that's boring. Unfortunately, too many entrepreneurs look for excitement. So what I teach people is that practice your maneuvers before you go into battle, before you go into that meeting, so you can see the moves coming. You got a strategy. That gives you confidence.
So if you're a salesperson, if you're a real estate agent, if you are an Instagram influencer, practice.
If you're a business owner, you want to hire people.
Right.
Because in your company, people believe in you and the movement. They take a bullet for you, right? So somewhere along the way, you had to sell your vision to them, right? So we're all selling. The mother's selling to the child to go to the movies or go and have a haircut. We're always selling. So people don't like the word sales because they automatically associate with a second-hand car salesman pressuring somebody to something they don't want to buy. So I think I bring certainty through skills required in the real marketplace. Now, also, I was goal-driven because when I was living in the maid's room, my surroundings told me that I was poor. So I couldn't sit there manifesting, I'm rich, because my surroundings were saying, you're an idiot, right? Because you're poor, you're thinking you're rich. So I used to dream I used to smell the Ferrari, I used to feel the wind in my face on my boat, and all this became real. And my goals kept changing. Then I realized my driving force also was that I didn't want to go back to that shithole that I came from. So I was running away from the pain and also going towards my goal. And I think too many people become comfortable in life and they relax. And I think comfort is your biggest enemy. People in the West, sometimes in the East, they can't eat, but in the West, we can get government handouts and still survive, right?
That's a really interesting concept, right? Comfort is the biggest enemy.
Yes.
Yet, I'm curious to know what you think of this. How do we balance? Because we want to be comfortable. We want to be sitting in a situation of gratitude. We want to be appreciative. How do you balance that versus having this drive to continuously do bigger and bigger?
I think you summed it up in our previous chat, is that you said, we have to make this life incredible. Comfort isn't incredible. Comfort is relaxed. It could be freaking fucking outstanding. You just have to reach out and grab it. So I think comfort is a low common denominator, right? It's a low standard. So comfort doesn't show growth. Growth comes through pain. Comes change, right? So I welcome it. You welcome it because we know the next level from pain is growth.
Right.
So it's the way you welcome change, it's the way you welcome pain. And I think if I didn't have it, I will have no growth. And then when you're comfortable and the world is evolving, you die. It's almost like going backwards.
You're right. What you're saying is really interesting, and I think you answered it in a way. We were talking earlier about the works of and the writings of philosophers like Neil Donald Walsh and Esther Hicks. They wrote the books Conversations with God, The Law of Attraction, and both of them said something really interesting. Esther Hicks said the point of being human is to create rockets of desire, to look at everything the world could potentially offer you and create, she used the words rockets of desire, and start desiring things. Start desiring the house, the boat, the relationships, because that's what this playground is for. It's a playground for our souls. But most of us are told to not desire, to be comfortable. And yes, you want to be comfortable, but you want to never quench like your thirst for desire, because desire can be good. It's you're practicing your creative skills, you're practicing your manifesting skills. The philosopher Neil Donald Walsh says a similar message in a different way. He says in Conversations with God, Book 2, he says, seek sex, seek money, seek fame, seek success, seek all of those things, because that is what the human plane is for.
It's in abundance, it's everywhere. Right. If you and I lose our money, we'll be rich again tomorrow because we see abundance from every crack of every wall because we choose to see it. It's just there. Unfortunately, what happens is when people have turbulence in life, they're looking for comfort. Yeah. When they have they're too comfortable, they get bored. So it's recognizing where you are and have a plan for growth, have a strategy for growth and what you're going to. That's why when people win lotteries, they sabotage it, right?
But because if you're seeking all of these things, you're also setting yourself up for failure, right? How do you deal with that? I
don't use the word failure.
Okay.
I don't fail in life. I learn there's obstacles, there's challenges. Failure is demoralizing.
So you tell your gladiators, this is a lesson you teach your gladiators.
Yes. If
let's go into this
lesson. I tell
lesson.
the gladiators, you're stupid if you don't learn from me. Because you will have heart attacks, you lose hundreds of millions of dollars, you waste your time, which is the most precious thing you got in life. Learn from teachers, right? If you're really smart, you learn at a younger age. Because most people start learning when they're at an older age.
Right.
Because they take life for granted, they take their time for granted. I always compare it to a bag of Maltesers. You know, when you go to the cinema, they give you this family pack of Maltesers. And you think, I'm never going to go through that. And then for the first half of the movie, you taking them. And then when it starts running out, you start sucking the outside, chewing it, nourishing it. And it's just like life.
Right.
You know, when you start getting to the end of it, most of my life is behind me, not in front of me. Am I going to waste it making mistakes, learning my own way and repeating the same thing? I'm going to learn from you who's made those mistakes. Who's smarter? So my gladiator program is like learn from the masters. I don't have all the answers, but maybe when it comes to business or negotiations, I'm a master at that. When it comes to spirituality, somebody else is. Seek masters out there. And what's your excuse? Because you have the internet. We didn't. Right. You have the internet. You can sit on the toilet and get taught by masters. You can be on the bus. You have no excuse now not to seek masters. Learn from them. Save yourself time, heartache, pain, and more than anything else, your happiness and your confidence.
I love it. I love the way you reframe failure like that. In terms of these gladiators, these people whose lives you're changing, and you have such a loyal fan base, it's incredible.
Thank you.
Share your Instagram so people can check you out.
Daryush Sudi official.
Okay, now of course, with a name like Daryush Sudi, yes. You're going to have to spell that.
What we can do, we can actually Dariush.
Okay.
Soudi official.
Soudi official.
Or Gladiator Mastery. Again, you have to believe in miracles. 2.5 years ago, I was in the States. I've been doing podcasts for 6.5 years, and momentum just picked up. 2.5 years ago, I went on a training course, and there's a gentleman who has a very high-rating podcast I'm going to introduce you to called Real Bradley. I'm within his course, and my wife said, why don't you go and, you got a good story to tell, go and speak to him. I said, no, I don't approach people because, I just don't do that. I want to meet you in your, and I was so close. No, he'll come to me one day, and it's happened, right? So my wife went over to him and said, and I was cringing, you should interview my husband. He goes, well, why should I? Because he's got a really interesting story to tell. And he said, okay, 5:00 tomorrow. As easy as that. I went on his podcast, and he's been doing podcasts for many, many years. He's like one of the number one podcasters in the whole of US. had the highest rating and highest views. 15 million people watch my podcast.
With this guy.
Yes. And my connection, my comments, I got invited all over America, everything because of that moment. And then
what do you think it was? What was that gem that you shared that resonated with people?
my vulnerability. I have no fear about sharing my vulnerability. And people, the most common thing I get is people say, your story resonates with mine.
Right.
They go somewhere along the way, somebody's driving, somebody's listening, and go, oof, that's me. And I can connect with this guy. And he doesn't have a problem with sharing his vulnerability, his insecurities. He's strong enough. And many men say, oh, I couldn't do that. I said, you become more of a man if you can. You become more attractive to the opposite sex. You become more inspiring when you cry, when it's genuine, when it's real.
Right.
People feel it. People feel that genuineness.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Thank you.
So we were talking about your gladiators, right? And it's an incredible tribe of entrepreneurs, and you use your podcast to share powerful wisdom. What are some of the most important things that people need to start paying attention to increase their odds of success on that entrepreneurial journey?
To be an entrepreneur, the more people you serve, the more people you sell to, the richer you get, period. So let's say, I don't know, Robbie Williams sells the most amount of tickets, he gets richer. Right. Tom Cruise sells the most amount of seats in cinemas, he gets richer. So we have to serve people. Bill Gates, Elon Musk. So if you look at Amazon, the more people he serves, he delivers boxes, the richer he gets. So in a way, you are selling. You're selling your brand. So if you look at people like Elon Musk, the business is a process. Too many people leave it to chance. They think it's feelings and emotions. Of course, doing business with someone, they have to like and trust you. They have to feel good that they can part with their hard-earned money to give it to you and hope that you're going to serve. Sitting in a room when you're negotiating is a process. Whether you turn up half an hour early, 10 minutes early, on time before a meeting is a process. It's a science. And people don't make this, they don't recognize it's a science. You can actually put a method in place that you get more hits than misses, right? So for instance, I'll give you an example. This is the first time we physically met one-to-one. I promise you, and the listeners here, when you go into a store, okay, and you see a salesman walking towards you, and you know what you're going to get. You want to get a pair of shoes, Armani shoes, size 9. You walk in, you see a salesman walking towards you. You already decided how that conversation is going to go. Right. And he's already decided how that conversation is going to go. He's going to come over and he says, good morning, I hate my job really, but how can I help you? How can I help you? And what are you going to say? It's okay, I'm just looking.
Right.
So if you imagine all these retailers all over the world play this game, and then what happens? The guy follows you around the shop like you're a thief. And you want to just get that product and run out. So there's no engagement. What if somebody's like me sat there and thought, hang on, this is a process, we can bypass it. The person's thinking, I want to get rid of you, but what they're sending out is a smoke screen saying, I'm just looking. Because if they were just looking, they won't walk into your store.
Right.
They just don't trust you enough, right? So I would teach people to break that pattern and say, good morning. By the way, they stand the distance, the space, and I say, good morning, are you just looking? By jamming the brain before they say it, people stop. And that's your chance to have a wow moment with them. And what I say is sell them a story. When you sell them a story, automatically your credibility with them goes up without selling anything. And they're suddenly thinking, one, this guy's different to anybody else. I'm engaging with him. He just educated me. And it's highly likely, even if they walk out the shop, they're going to come back another time and buy from you because you were different to anybody else who said, how can I help you? And this happens through life. So if I was going to sell to you, I will sit here because it's my power position. If you imagine 10,000 years ago, when we were in a cave, we didn't sit with our back to the cave door, did we, or opening, because animals could walk in. So what we'll do is sit in the power position waiting for what comes in. So if I come to your office, I want to sit where I know where the traffic is going to come in so we can dominate this meeting together. But have you ever been on meetings when you're selling with your backs to the door and your prospect's distracted?
Right.
Right? Not that you're trying to get his attention. Yes, you try to sell it, and everybody else is dominating your meeting. So I teach people where to sit in the room, how to break the patterns.
And this is an important lesson for all business owners, right? Everything that you're building is a process. So, for example, when I built my first website to sell a wellness product, I tested every single aspect. What are the right items on the menu? Should we offer free lessons? How many days? 7 days or 9 days? What do we put in the footer? What is the best type of headline? What is the best way to introduce the product? What is the best pricing? Do we end with 99 or do we end with 95?
Yeah.
All of the little things we tested.
Yeah.
Once we did that,
split test everywhere.
yeah,
Yes.
once we did that, and we had a simple website doing 1 million in sales, we replicated it. And then we replicated it. And then we replicated it 100 times. But we have that secret
And people
process.
call you lucky.
Yes.
You see?
Right.
You create your own luck by taking your life seriously. You took your business seriously. Now, yes, the vision was to change the world for the better and help people. At the same time, you couldn't do that unless you made this a process, a systemized way. And I call it the lowest hanging fruit.
Yeah.
Right?
I am continuously shocked by how many people I employ, how many contractors I work with, how many people I meet who don't get this idea. And they're random about what they do. Even creativity, they think creativity is random. So I'll give you an example. I needed to hire graphic designers to create covers for some content that we were producing. And the covers sucked. And so I just thought, I don't know anything about graphic design. It's not my forte, but I know something that I like. And so I played around with ChatGPT, and then I played around with Midjourney, and soon I was able to create better covers than the graphic designer I hired just using AI, because I turned it into a process. I figured out exactly what to put into ChatGPT to create the exact prompt to put into Midjourney, and boom, 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 boom. But it's not because I'm a great graphic designer. I'm just a great process guy. But now I can out-design graphic designers because they think, oh, I'm just going to sit here and this creativity is going to come to me. They were not thinking in terms of process.
Also, they're not thinking, right? They're not asking the right questions. They accept the lower bar.
Right.
You have to constantly ask more. The quality of your answers, the kind of conversation you're having with, the quality of questions you're asking, right? So before any of my team come into my room, they have to have their laptops open. They have to have the presentation ready. I don't have time for conversation about how my weekend was.
Right.
They have to have 3 options because I'm going to ask them why they came up with those options. So what I realized, by controlling myself, I can control the environment that I create around me. And I think the problem is that the bar is often too low.
Yeah.
And hopefully you and I can be more successful by raising the bar constantly. And the environment challenges you.
Yeah.
Come on, make a decision. Come on, do it. Let's just go ahead. You think, no, because it just doesn't feel right. It's not the standard that I want it to be.
Let's talk about decision making. What are some of the best tools you found to help entrepreneurs make better decisions?
Stop worrying, because the reality is never as bad as you worry. And your best aphrodisiac is action. Before you remortgage your home, go and ask 5 people, independent people, and ask them for market research. I'm the best singer on the planet in the shower, but I'm never going to sell a record. Okay, so your ideas are fantastic in your own head, but go and don't ask your family members. They're going to tell you what you want to hear, and they don't want to hurt your feelings. Go out there and ask 100 independent people, what do they think before you risk everything, start your business. Second, don't start something new, because to change a market opinion is very expensive, very costly, and it's draining. It's a lot easier sometimes come out second to the marketplace and ride on their investment of time, effort, and energy. So too many people want to try change the market, change the world, but it's very, very expensive.
And it's not easy. But you can easily start something that already exists
and improve it,
generate revenue, and then when you have that revenue, when you have that business, that's when you can start experimenting.
Absolutely. And your energy changes. So if you've got money coming in and I'm sitting in a meeting, I'm hungry because I'm driven by my desire to succeed. But if I'm sitting there thinking, shit, I've got to pay rent, my energy changes, and the person on the other side of the room recognize desperation. Nobody invests in a desperate person.
Right.
And it's something said under the radar. It's something that you can't put your finger on it, but they feel it. They feel you're desperate. And they always think there must be something wrong if he's there where he is.
So you encourage businesses to start making money as soon as possible.
Absolutely. I'll give you one example. Maybe your viewers can take one of the biggest challenges with an opportunity to sell a service, sell a movement, sell an idea is that you have a great meeting and then the other person ghosts you. And it leaves a lump in your throat. And you think, I just spent a whole weekend putting this proposal together. I did this and they're ghosting me. And then after a while, you realize, you start labeling them time wasters, assholes, this. And then you think, should I keep messaging them? Now I look desperate. How often should I contact them? Right? The fact is that most people are good people. And maybe they want to reject you. Maybe something happened, a circumstance changed. But they don't want to upset you. So the easiest thing to do is ghost you. So again, we go through this game. The guy, 3 calls you miss, he doesn't want to upset you, blocks you, or 10 calls, he just ignores you, knowing you're going to go away. But what if we create as gladiators a letter saying, no hard feelings? I don't win every battle I engage in. I don't win every deal I work on. But I really look forward to meeting you. After our last meeting, I worked all weekend. Just do me a favor so I can grow from this experience. Let me know why you haven't gone ahead. No hard feelings. 25% of 100 people who ghost you will reply. And they'll explain why. Because we didn't put ourselves in a position like, he's wrong, I'm right, he's a bastard.
And so I cringed when you mentioned that because it reminded me of the Muhammad Ali story.
Yes.
Right? You traveled, you got all of these people supporting you with this letter to Ali. You go all the way to Louisville, Kentucky, and Ali doesn't show. How did you feel about that?
Do you know what hurt more than anything? Because when I got this movement, it went to about 150,000 followers. This just kept continuing. And then I found out that Muhammad Ali family has sold their name. They only own about 10% of his name now.
I see.
The same company owns Michael Jackson, and Marilyn Monroe owns the Muhammad Ali brand. And then because I was inspiring people and I was sharing Muhammad Ali posts and videos, and it was really, the movement was amazing. They shut me down.
Oh no.
They just overnight, they shut me down because they felt I was infringing on the Muhammad Ali brand.
I see.
And that hurt because I was only doing good. I wasn't selling anything. I was spending a lot of my time inspiring all these people around the world.
I see. When I walked into your office, I was astounded with the number of beautiful photography of Muhammad Ali. He really inspired you.
Very much so. Not just because he was a champion, he had certainty, he was the greatest of all time. He had his flaws, by the way. He hurt people along the way, especially his wives and partners and stuff. But then what he did was he was a black man in a white world. He was for peace when there was Vietnam War. At the peak of his career, he stuck to his values and principles, and he'd stopped fighting for 3 years. Peak of his career, walked away from millions of dollars because he was a man of principles.
He was protesting the Vietnam War.
He was a Muslim in a Christian country. He had so many things. He was Parkinson's disease, and he didn't hide. He went on top of the stadium during the Olympics, and his hands were shaking. It was heartbreaking for people to watch. But then he inspired people out there in the world that disability is not
What are some of the biggest lessons from Muhammad Ali that we can take into business?
Values. I think if you come to my company now, I'm in a privileged position that before we even start, I'll share with you my value book. And it's my Bible. You open up and it says, these are Daryush's values: honesty, speed, transparency, communication. All these are my values. Do you adhere to it? If they say no, we won't do business, irrespective of how much money there is. Because I want to look forward to meeting you. I want to serve you. I don't want to serve you and then thinking, well, he hasn't paid me yet. Is he going to pay me? Then conversation goes west. I'm distracted. So boundaries. Be very clear. Again, with personal relationships. How many times we don't know our values, we're not clear with our boundaries, and people keep stepping on them. And it bothers us. We stop looking forward to going to work. We stop looking forward to meeting this prospect or our boss because they constantly cross boundaries.
What were Ali's values?
Islam was one of them, because he came to the Middle East and realized that all people were equal. Black, white, brown. There was no prejudice. And that resonated with him because he felt prejudice in the 60s. He threw his gold medal in the river because they wouldn't serve him in a white restaurant.
Wow.
So,
and when he was asked to serve in the Vietnam War, he said, I'm not going to go there and shoot Vietnamese people. No Vietnamese man ever called me the N-word.
Exactly. And a lot of people were against him. There was a movement against him. They were booing him on the stadiums.
Yeah.
You know, he stuck
And
to
he
his
stuck to his principles. He was a man of value. I noticed when we met, we immediately connected because this was supposed to be a short recording. We've spent now 4 hours together.
I'm hoping it's the beginning of a friendship. So.
I think it is. But we immediately connected on values as well. Now,
Yes.
how did that conversation emerge? You had pictures of Ali on your wall. And I mentioned that in my office, I have the biggest picture in my office when you walk in is Muhammad Ali. It's an autographed, it's signed by him. And so we started talking about Ali and what he represented to us. And boom, we found value alignment. And immediately, I think we both trusted each other.
Very much.
And
so.
that's how we became
Listen,
friends.
do you know, I've done hundreds of podcasts. How many people do you think I've taken to my office first? Zero.
I see.
Zero. I don't know why I took you to my office, but the energy, the force, the universe
Right.
got me to sit in the office for you to spot those pictures.
Yeah.
I didn't do it on purpose. I didn't not at homework you were into Muhammad Ali or you were inspired by him. It just happened.
So value alignment is really important. It's like we recognize the seed of ourselves in another, and then it creates that trust. And that's really, 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 really good advice for entrepreneurs. I hire people based on their values, right? I want to hire people who are passionate about personal growth, because if I don't, they're not going to be passionate about our product.
Correct.
And so I think this idea of working with the people who share the values is really good advice.
And also, let's say you mishire someone.
Right.
You're going to spend all your energy trying to align them to your move, and they
Yeah.
don't want to be there.
Yeah.
They don't want to be there. So you stop. I say the best way to be giving is to be selfish.
Right.
You know, you really have to. You know, people say your cup's either full or half empty or half full. I said your cup's got to be overflowing.
Right.
Right? When you're overflowing and you're free to give, you can inspire people, the masses and millions. But if you've brought something in your life that's going to take that energy away, your cup's always going to be half full.
I think the values message is a very important thing.
Very much so.
Right? I once made one of the biggest single mistakes in business, and it was hiring one guy who would destroy so much of what I loved. So I meet this guy, and he's a brilliant, brilliant copywriter, but his values were off. But he was so talented, but he was a drinker, he was on drugs, and I thought, you know, I teach people personal growth.
You can fix it.
I can fix him. And so, of course, every time you hire someone, you do a reference check. We did reference checks on this guy. And 2 companies that had him said, please don't hire this man. But there was something about this guy. He was very charming. And I told him, listen, I see potential in you. And I think maybe you made some mistakes. Everybody changes. I'll give you the job. So we gave him the job. And he did something that was awful, right? So, for example, we have an email list that goes out to our customers. And if customers don't respond after maybe 4 or 5 emails, normally you send them a little message that said, would you like to continue being on our list? Because you got to prune your list, right? Otherwise you get bad email delivery scores. He wrote an email to our customers. And let's say the customer's name is Tom. An email went out to our customer going, RIP Tom, RIP Tom. It sounded like a threat. We got so many complaints. And so we had to fire him because this was inexcusable. Anyone with good conscience would not have written an email that would have threatened the customer. And I felt so stupid because I let this pass. I had to apologize to all my
only because
customers.
At some point, you abdicated responsibility.
Right.
We didn't delegate responsibility. I do that quite often. That's too much trust.
Now, it didn't stop. This man was literally dark energy. After we let him go, he decided he was angry at the company, and he launched a campaign on Glassdoor against the company. Reviews saying that I'm an abusive boss, that the company doesn't treat its employees, none of which is not
good. It's a cult, it's this.
And that showed up on Google. And it affected our hiring in such a big way, but it was all rubbish. And this value misalignment, and today values are the most important thing. I don't try to change people. If I see that somebody has an energy, I'm not going to go, oh, you know, I'm so cool, I can shift them. I just avoid the heck out of that person. If somebody has an energy that's dark, that's off, if the values are different, I just keep walking.
Yes.
I do not want to have anything to do with them. And when I hire employees, I look for certain values. The 3 values I look for are they passionate about personal growth? Do they have unity consciousness? Unity consciousness means that they feel connected to all life, to all races, to all ethnicities. There's no sexual harassment in their past. There is no, not even a hint of racism. They're very open to diversity. That's unity consciousness. You feel oneness with everything. And then the final value is, are they a dreamer who wants to do good things in the world? We call that envisioning. And so those three values are how I make all of my hires, all my business partners, anyone I connected to. It's because these three values are in them. And I saw those in you, and that's why I think we connected.
Here's the thing. If you sit down with somebody in front of you right now, and it's easy for them to buy into your vision, it's easy to say, yeah, I'm all those three. But did they 10 years ago, when you first started, when you had a small office? The power is when people believe in you, when you don't have movement.
Right.
It's when they come and join you and they stick with you through the struggles. It's very easy to come and work for a nice office.
Yeah.
But who would come and work for me when I was working for a hotel lobby?
Right.
It's those key people you want to get. Who?
Yeah. And when we started, we were working in the back of a warehouse. We had a horrible office in a horrible ghetto part of town. But again, on our website, we listed our values.
Yes.
And we said, do you believe, back then our values were a little bit different. It was 20 years ago. We said, do you believe in ditching the 9 to 5 and having flexible working hours? Do you believe in building products that actually improve human wellness and don't trick people into bad habits? We listed those values, and we got our core team because they resonated with those values.
I heard about your working environment before I heard about your services.
Right.
Can you believe it?
Yeah.
Because I was talking about this movement that's happening in Malaysia, and this guy's doing this, and this is a place to work, and you won awards, right, for that.
We won tons of awards. Yeah.
So amazing. Your values speak louder than your words. It's incredible.
Yeah.
But they test you. There are times, like for instance, somebody got on Glassdoor. The guy thinks he's Christ or he's something, and I'm like, and he hurts because we're human beings. And and the first thing I do is I reflect.
Right.
So is it me? Is it true? And I think, hang on a second. Every morning for 10 minutes in our company, collectively, I don't even attend this meeting, but 10 minutes, they share values every morning in our company. So that's way of like autopiloting, aligning ourselves to where we were going to go. Because again, we can get lethargic, we can get relaxed, we can get used to it.
Yeah.
So if somebody thinks that's the call, I'm glad they didn't fit in.
Yeah, and that's one of the hard parts about being an entrepreneur. We used to have a simple 5-minute meditation before our company weekly report, which is normal because at one point, we were selling meditation CDs. It was 80% of our business. Someone that was not a good employee that we had to let go of got on Glassdoor and said, oh, it's a cult. They are forcing their employees to meditate.
Yes.
And so we had to cancel that. We literally had to stop that.
Really?
And the majority of employees were unhappy that we had to stop it. But we had to do it to keep ourselves safe. Today, any disgruntled employee can go and say shit about their employer.
Yes.
But these employees don't understand that they're hurting themselves.
Yes.
They're hurting other employees. They're hurting themselves. They're creating so much bad energy out there, and it's not true.
The problem is that they don't give a damn.
They don't.
We care because we care about individuals who miss that opportunity to work for you and I.
Exactly.
Because at the same time, Glassdoor is a platform where you don't have an opportunity to reply.
Yeah.
It's a one-way traffic.
There's no way.
That's another frustration.
And what people don't realize is anyone with an anonymous email address can post anything.
Can say
it's
anything.
not validated.
Absolutely. So I think that's unfair. And somebody should be judging and thinking this is a one-way traffic and it can often be anyone who's upset.
Yeah. So one of the most important things is, as an entrepreneur, protect your reputation. And protect your reputation means don't try to be a savior to everyone. Have a very tight, closed circle of employees, of partners, and invite people in that circle based on your values.
So true.
Be really tight about those values.
If you take somebody out of the ghetto, you might not be able to get the ghetto out of them. And then they'll end up resenting you, although you had the best intentions.
Right. And so the lesson is hire for attitude and value first. Skills come second. The right attitude and the right value, people can learn the skills. They can rapidly climb up that skill ladder.
Do you mind if I share with you?
Yes, absolutely.
I created a 7-step recruitment process.
I want to hear this.
I love to hear it. And part of my wealth came from that because I was charging $2,500 for 1 hour recruitment process, teaching people how to do this.
Wow.
So if you look at it from an employer's point of view, at the moment, do you still interview people in your company?
Very rarely. Because we're very large right now, and I only interview key hires.
Great, but you have teams that recruit people.
Exactly.
And interview. So if you imagine the psychology of it all and the internal dialogue, when most people place an advert in a newspaper, because I've been looking for jobs in the past, and I read, and halfway through thinking, this is Superman or Superwoman. Nobody's got those qualifications, this motivation, those experiences. So I qualify myself out and I move to the next advert. So I think the way we write adverts is wrong, and then we talk about our own brand too much. What we should be talking about our movement, our energy, our values. And then at the end say, by the way, we are Gladiator Mastery.
Right.
We are Mind Valley. I think when adverts are placed, they're based on really skill levels and not motivation values. So I would change somebody's advert on a basis so most people go, that's me. That resonates with how I feel about life. I like their values. I'll make the call. By the way, we are Mind Valley. And then he says we're looking for superstars. Now, if you imagine on the other side, somebody makes 10 interviews times 1 hour, 1 hour, 1 hour, and that's 2 days of somebody's time taken. On average, 30 to 40% don't show up. So you're sitting there wasting your time waiting for somebody to come in. It's been proven that we often hire the last people we see because we can't even remember the first people we see.
Right.
Because that feeling, the emotion is gone and it's become a revolving chair, like musical chairs. So the first person doesn't get a fair opinion or chance to work for your organization. Right. So we tend to hire the last people we see.
I see.
So I'm thinking there's problems in the marketplace. So I change the way we place the ad and base it all on values. Okay? And we're just looking for a superstar salesperson, superstar administrator, superstar this. So, and then because of the nature of the ad, 10 times more people will apply. Right? So I've trained the receptionist to answer the phone. The first thing they say is, what makes you a superstar? And if the person doesn't know, because it says we're looking for super, we say, when you do know, call us back. We put the phone down. That's the first line of interview.
That's a beautiful screening process.
Straight
because
away.
If you consider yourself a superstar web developer, you know why. And if you know why, it means you're process oriented. Also,
our values in the ad, all you have to do is repeat what we've already written. So superstars do that, okay? So 90% of the people get eliminated. So out of 1,000, and you get sometimes 1,000 calls a day. So we get about 20 people coming.
Wow.
Every single person we say, you have an interview with Vishen, Daryush at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. So what happens? They don't know it's a group interview. And they don't know we have a spy. So what happens is the spy in the room monitors when they come in. If somebody phones up 5 minutes before asking for directions, they don't get hired. Somebody phones up saying, I'm going to be late, they don't get hired. This is your final chance to make an impression in your life. Are you going to turn up 10 minutes late? Right. Are you going to look for direction 5 minutes before? Too many times we just allow it to happen because if they are going to be hired by us and they're going to represent us and they're going to do that to our prospects, right, we're going to lose money on the table. So, and they're not superstar behavior. So they start coming in, they say, I'll have a meeting with Daryush at 9 o'clock, have a meeting with Daryush. And after about the third time, they realize everybody's asking for Daryush at 9 o'clock. So the spy monitors the behavior when change happens. Do you want to hire someone but they freeze when change happens? Or do you want to hire someone and say, bring it on, I'm ready for this? Okay? And then they monitor, and I run the meeting late by 20 minutes. And we monitor how they behave when they feel they've been lied to. Things didn't go according to plan.
That's
do they gang
sneaky,
up?
But brilliant.
Yeah, because they haven't got the guards up. They already know, are you organized? Are you punctual? Tell me about your history. What are your strengths? They practice the questions you're going to ask. And you're so tired of asking the same questions, you're going to ask the same. So we got through this game, and the end, that was presentable. I hire him. They could speak. And it's based on an emotional decision. I mean, we often find out why it doesn't work out 3 months later, because we played this game, role playing. Then I come in, I explain. I said, there's 12 of you here because out of 28 don't show up. I haven't wasted 8 hours of my life.
Right.
So I sit down, form a circle. 30% don't play, they freeze, they don't want to do anything because they don't, this isn't what they were prepared to do. So already we know we're not going to hire them. So I get them to connect with each other. I said the first sign of success is that people are going to like and trust each other. How can we do that? By asking great questions, right? You never met each other before. Ask somebody in the room a question. So somebody won't go, you. They disrespect someone by their behavior, right? And pointing and saying you, because they all have their names in front of them.
Right.
I would say, Vishen, I'd like to ask you a question. And then we look at the quality of the question they ask. And it's incredible how many people can ask one good question of somebody they've never met before. You won't believe it. They don't know how to. Do they ask an open question? Does it open dialogue? Do they understand it? So, and then whoever answers that question has got somebody else to ask a question. And then the whole interview process takes 40 minutes. And at the end, I said, right, on the way out, thank you so much. My opinion is one of 12. What I'd like you to do is to write down on the back of this envelope who you would hire if you were in my position.
Wow. But you can't put your own name.
I say, you can't ask me a question, right? And somebody says, can I put my own name? I told you can't ask a question. I'm looking for someone who puts their own name. You see, you're a superstar.
You're looking for someone who puts
Their own name. You're not going to go and sell a product or service. You are the product and say, no, buy somebody else.
Right.
Right? You are the superstar.
Because you're interviewing salespeople.
Superstar. Right. Or administrative people. Right. Or my PA. She's incredible. And everybody wants to hire her because she went through the sales process.
Wow. I met your team walking in here. Yes. Everyone is incredible.
Happy.
I love it.
And guess what? I normally run my meetings 10 minutes late because by the time, in that 10 minutes, they already decide they want to do business with me.
Yeah.
Because their energy is good. People are happy. They're courteous. They're wonderful. They're smiley. He must be a good guy.
Right. That's
amazing. See? And then I reject everyone. And then I tell them that then we get a piece of paper. Who's voted for most person? Highly likely that person's going to be the one we're going to hire. And ideally, they voted for themselves. Then I say, unlike other companies, I'm going to call you within 1 hour. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to send you this bullshit letter say we'll keep you in file, blah, blah, blah. I respect you. And I give them all a gift for their time. I respect their time. Within an hour, I call them. You won't believe how many people have their phone switched off. Right? When I told them I'm going to call them in an hour. But they answer the phone. I said, how did it go? They're all excited. They've never had this experience because I've been very courteous and respectful. They learned something. Then I say, unfortunately, you didn't get the jump. Everyone. What I'm looking for is somebody who doesn't give up. Who says, why? Because they wanted so much. And I said, well, you know what? That's the final hurdle I was looking for. So we are going to hire you. We want to get you for a second interview, but we want to see if you have perseverance. You really wanted it enough. By this time, do you know what they're thinking?
What?
Oh my God, I want to work for this guy because I want to learn everything 5 minutes.
Wow. So you really hacked the system, but you developed this whole game
process
that identifies people with the right values. But now sharing it on this podcast, didn't you just jeopardize your game?
We still catch them because nobody does anything. So no, I'm just joking. They go, wow, that's great, but I can't be bothered doing it.
Right.
So then I have to hire my team and then we'll do it for them. So what happens is the person says, well, fantastic. When's my second interview? 5 o'clock tomorrow morning. Silence. You won't believe how many people say, well, I'm really not in a good mood in the morning. They break at the final hurdle. So 5 o'clock, I'll be there at 4:30. Where do you want to be? I said, we're just teasing you one more time. It was a test. Come at 9 o'clock. By this time, we haven't gone through the CVs.
Right.
And guess what happens? Vishen, they don't even ask how much the salary is, what the bonus is, because by this time, they just want to work for you.
Wow.
Right? Then we get the CVs out, we do the reference checks and everything else. But by this time, you're getting loyal people because they've just been inspired. They've learned something. Thank you.
Love it.
Thank you. So it's called hiring superstars. And it saves you hours and hours of time looking at empty seats where people let you down and then you're going making a choice based on CVs, which we all know are lies.
Right. Right. I love that, Darius. Thank you so much. This is such a beautiful conversation. And for those of you who are entrepreneurs, I hope you enjoyed this convo. Where can people sign up for your podcast?
Daryush Sudi official on all platforms or Gladiator Mastery.
And so follow you on Instagram, and that's where you can get acquainted with Darius's work. Thank you.